Hi everyone, and welcome to August Global Debate. We have a great debate set up for you today on ensuring the rights of people in coastal regions affected by climate change. We have a lot of new delegates, so welcome to you guys. It's great to have you in our O-MUN community. First of all, I want to start you guys off with going through some important Blackboard Collaborate information, tools that you guys will need to successfully participate in today's debate. So, let me see if I can get this hand working and I'll go through these. Alright, there should be a pointer on the screen to help you follow along. So to give feedback, show yourself as a way and raise your hand and vote. There are 4 icons at the top of the participants box that you guys should be aware of. So this first is to give smiley faces. These will not be used during the majority of the debate, but you can use them in lobby sessions and at the end of the debate. To show yourself as a way, if you need to step away from your computer or anything like that during the debate, and you want to show that you're publicly away from your computer, all you have to do is click on this, check out below my name, and it shows that you're away. To raise your hand, so this is raising your placard in our online format here, all you're going to do is click on that little icon with a hand on it, and that will raise your hand to announce to the chair that you want to raise your placard. And then to vote for both amendments and the resolution, and this icon will change, moderators will change it for you, depending upon what you're voting on, but you're going to use that 4th icon and we'll either have a green check and X, or we'll have ABC functions for either the amendments or resolutions, so that's how you'll vote. If you jump on the microphone and people aren't able to hear you, then you can turn up your speaker volume, and you can turn up your own microphone volume here. So this is below the black box that should be at the top left-hand corner of your screen, right above the talk and video buttons. So you can just adjust everything there. So to use the microphone, and you guys already seem to know this, but for roll call and then throughout the debate, to use the microphone, what you're going to do is click that talk button, and then to jump off the microphone, you'll click talk again. So then to send a private message, so to pass a note to a fellow delegate, or to moderators if you need any help with anything, all you have to do is right-click on their name and click Send Private Message. And that will send them a message that is private only to them. A couple of notes about that. Moderators can always see all chats. So if you send a private message, just know that moderators are in the know. And then with this room chat right here, let me type this in so you can see it. This is the public chat, so everyone can see that in the room. This will not be used during the majority of the debate. If you need help from a moderator, private message us. We're here to help. I'm also logged on Facebook, so you're welcome to message me there. So if you're having any problems, audio issues, then one thing to do is at the top left-hand corner of your screen, go to Tools, then Audio, and then Audio Setup Wizard, and run through that. That just basically refreshes your computer for you. And then if you have any additional tech problems, again, message me on Facebook or message me here in the Blackboard Collaborate room. We're here to help, and I can move you into our separate breakout room to work you through some tech issues. Okay, so I want to start us off by introducing our chair, Marie Tucci, and then she will introduce the rest of our team and start roll call. So Marie is from the American School of Doha. She lives in Qatar. She has a lot of MUN experience. She's a head chair at Diamond Qatar. She's been a chair at 3 O-MUN debates and has filled other moderating positions. And she's attended 3 international conferences as a delegate. She's a wonderful chair. So I'm going to send it over to her, and she's going to start the debate. Again, welcome, guys, and hope you have a fantastic debate.
Hi, guys. Thanks, McKenna, for that introduction. I'm just going to move on to the rest of my team now. So Salam is our tele-moderator for this debate, and she goes to Al-Qasimi High School. She's 19 years old. And this is her 9th O-MUN debate, so she has plenty of O-MUN experience. And she joined O-MUN last year and has already participated in 3 conferences so far. Shukri is the amendments moderator for this debate, and he goes to the Overseas Family School, and he's in 9th grade. He has a lot of experience as well, as he's been involved as an O-MUN delegate since early March, and now he's the EAO for Singapore. He began MUN in early January and has been to 1 conference and 5 O-MUN debates. Simran is our top moderator, one of our top moderators, and she goes to Dubai International Academy. She lives in the UAE and is 16 years old. She's been involved in MUN for the past 2 years and attended 3 traditional MUN conferences. Marina is the other top moderator, and she goes to St. Joseph's School. She's in 11th grade and has been to more than 10 O-MUN debates, and her hobbies are drawing, dancing, and swimming. Okay, and McKenna Tucker, of course, she's our assistant director for this debate, and she goes to George Washington University, OHS. She's from the United States, and she's a senior in high school, 17 years old. She has plenty of experience, probably the most out of all of us in O-MUN, and she's been an O-MUN delegate before, a moderator and chair during 8th to 10th grade. She's the O-MUN Secretary General and Assistant Director. Okay, great, delegates. We're now going to commence with roll call. So when I call your country, please press the talk button and say present or present in voting. The delegate of Bahrain.
Present and voting.
The delegate of Brazil.
Present and voting.
Canada.
Present and voting.
China.
The delegate of China is present and voting.
Costa Rica.
Present and voting.
Cuba.
Present and voting.
Cyprus. Denmark.
Voting.
Dominican Republic.
Present and voting.
France.
Present and voting.
The delegate of the Maldives.
Present and voting.
Moldova.
Present and voting.
Peru.
Present and voting.
Singapore.
Present and voting.
South Africa. The delegate of South Africa. The delegate of the United States.
Delegate of the United States is present and voting.
We are now going to commence the debate on the issue of just 1 second, delegates. Okay, we're now commencing debate on the issue of ensuring the rights of people in coastal regions affected by climate change. Could the main submitter, the delegate of Singapore, please give his opening speech and read the operative clauses?
Sorry, but the resolution is not on the. Just a moment. Clause 1 authorizes member states to defer to UNCLOS, UN Convention on the Law of the Sea, in territorial disputes resulting from rising sea levels and subsequent submerged or altered coastlines. Clause 2 calls for the creation of CEEP, Coastal Emergency Evacuation Plan, created by the IPCC, whose tasks shall include but not be limited to A. Fully supporting the UN in cases where resources and the aid of volunteers are required, and collaborating with the Red Cross in any urgent matter related to climate change impacts. B. Enforcing emergency evacuation plans currently in place for coastal areas at danger of severe flooding or being permanently submerged. C. Ensuring adequate finances and resources for refugees displaced by natural disasters through means such as, but not limited to, I. Accepting donations, II. Using funds from the UN budget. D. Encourages the CEEP to collaborate with the Red Cross. Clause 3 encourages the government of nations threatened by permanent flooding and other METCs and NGOs to contribute money, resources, and manpower to improve the infrastructure of areas at risk of flooding in order to mitigate the effects of such a disaster through ways including but not limited to Subclause A, building dams or barricades to prevent flooding. Subclause B, building safe areas with accommodation at high altitudes for those at danger from floods. Subclause C, improving the structure of buildings, roads, public transport, and other infrastructure to mitigate the effects of flooding. Clause 4, calls upon nations to grant refugees displaced by natural disasters, especially those from coastal areas, Subclause A, to be afforded basic refugee rights under the UN Convention and subsequent protocol regarding the status of refugees. Subclause B, to assist the refugees in securing long-term employment. Subclause C, to grant them permanent residency in case natural disasters in those areas are extremely damaging and long-lasting. Clause 5, urges all member states to pledge themselves to carbon neutrality, therefore pledging to reduce their carbon footprint to zero over 100 years by A, creating a plan that includes short-term goals and include resources that will be used until the carbon footprint is reduced to zero. B, starting to use their own natural renewable resources for creating energy. Subclause C, developed countries aiding LEDCs in reducing their carbon footprint through financial and infrastructural aid. Clause 6, urges nations bordering devastated states to aid citizens of devastated nations in terms of housing and shelter.
Thank you, Delegate. Would the Delegate now please proceed to his opening speech?
Honorable Chairs and esteemed delegates, the issue of ensuring the rights of people in coastal regions affected by climate change is no easy one. This resolution seeks to reach a balance between short-term goals and long-term goals in order to reduce the scale of this problem in the future. For example, long-term goals such as the one listed in Clause 5 to reach carbon neutrality globally by over a 100-year period are in conjunction with clauses such as Clause 2, which creates immediate groups to tackle the issues that plague nations. While it is important to try to stop the issue from arising in the future by reducing climate change, but it is also important to tackle the issues caused by climate change already and provide aid for the people in coastal regions. The delegate of Singapore looks forward to debate with other delegates in improving this resolution and finding long-term solutions for the issue of the rights of people in coastal regions affected by climate change for the long-term future. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate. The chair now sets debate time at 90 minutes of open debate. Are there any delegates wishing to take the floor at this time? Then please use your placards. The delegate of Brazil is recognized.
Overall, the delegate feels this is a good step in the right direction. Like any resolution, it has its flaws, but it also has strong pros. Unless we desire a sanguineous future, then I feel this would help preserve life. Life is all about preservation, and the delegate feels his great-grandchildren will be positively affected by this resolution. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate. Is the delegate open to any points of information?
None.
The floor is now open once again. Are there any other delegates wishing to give a speech at this point? Then please raise your placards. The delegate of Canada is recognized.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Although the Delegate of Canada agrees this is a well-compiled resolution, but given the fact that there are many nations in the world which are completely surrounded by water on all four sides, and countries like Japan, whose majority border is coastal, the delegate believes that nothing as point as such in these resolutions can actually stop nations like Japan, nations like Malaysia, nations like Brunei from submerging completely underwater, which is a near possibility, judging by the fact that the number of carbon emissions that are going into the air. So I would like to question the delegate of Singapore whether any feasible solutions can be amended into this resolution with regards to the near future of countries like Japan, Brunei, Maldives, and possibility even of Madagascar, which is completely surrounded by water and are at threat from flooding. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate. Is the delegate open to any points of information?
All. Any and all. Thank you.
The delegate has opened himself up to any and all points of information. However, the chair will only be able to entertain two of such. Are there any in the House? Then please raise your placard now. The delegates of Canada, USA, and Maldives have been recognized in that order.
The delegate of the United States would like to ask the delegate what suggestions he has to better this resolution, as he seems to just be criticizing it without offering any constructive methods.
Thank you, Delegate of the United States. Now, as a solution, first I'd like to start off with an explanation and an example. During the 2004 tsunami which struck the Indian subcontinent and Sri Lanka, there was one portion of the Indian subcontinent near Tamil Nadu. It's called a place 40 kilometers from the port city of Chennai. Now, the specialty of the region was that the coast was completely surrounded by mangroves. Now, the mangroves, although they aren't very, let's say, are not grown everywhere in the world, especially not in coasts. These mangroves prove to be beneficial not only for the farmers in the particular area, but also for the land. Because if everyone remembers correctly, the 2004 tsunami had completely submerged many parts of the Indian subcontinent underwater. But fortunately for the area which was covered, which had mangroves growing, the mangrove roots were more than capable of absorbing the shock of the waves which kept coming in as a result of the tsunami. Not only did they save the landmass from being submerged, they also saved millions of dollars of agricultural production from being disturbed. Although Canada is not suggesting that each and every country should grow mangroves in their coast, this is one of the viable solutions Canada would like to offer because many of the countries have the capability, the right conditions, and the right and the capability of growing and sustaining such natural shields against flooding. Thank you.
The delegate of the Maldives has been recognized to ask a point of information.
Delegate, thank you for your point. However, the delegate of Maldives would like to ask if Clause 3 does not include infrastructural aid, which will basically, if not permanently stop, it will abate the flooding for around 2 to 3 years. And the Maldives can say this because it's using these means itself. So does the delegate agree that Clause 3 includes infrastructural aid?
Thank you, Delegate of Maldives. Now, as you mentioned, they are infrastructural aids, and they are not the solution to such a problem. The need for an aid to a problem only arises when the situation is worsening and when it has gone out of hands of the authorities involved. Now, people require aid only when the situation is compromised and they are not capable of surviving that onslaught anymore. So instead of reaching a situation in which people are forced to live in places which are threatened by such flooding and have no natural shields against such natural calamities, building dams or barricades will only worsen the situation, as building dams has proved to be more harmful than beneficial. Dams tend to block the natural flow of water, which again leads to an increase in concentration of pressure on one side, which can cause earthquakes as well. It is a scientific fact. Building dams or barricades will not be enough. There needs to be more natural and more eco-friendly solutions. Like I said, like the delegate mentioned, mangroves. They are a viable solution, but the delegate of Canada is not completely implying that all should. And I'd like to conclude by saying we must look for more eco-friendly and more practical solutions. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate. Does the delegate now yield the floor back to the chair?
The delegate would like to yield the floor back to the chair. Thank you.
The floor is now open once again. Are there any other delegates wishing to take the floor at this point? The delegate of Bahrain has been recognized.
The delegate of Canada has made a valid point that certain island nations face a greater threat from the climate change and its adverse impact of rising sea levels. As a small island nation, the Kingdom of Bahrain also faces an immediate threat from rising sea levels. Now, although Bahrain has been able to take independent and proactive measures to mitigate the effects of rising sea levels, it calls for international cooperation in establishing long-term goals that prevent climate change in the future, and also for the creation of the CEEP as outlined by clause number 2. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate. Is the delegate open to any points of information?
No.
That is in order. Would the delegate now yield the floor back to the chair, please?
The delegate yields the floor back to the chair.
Thank you. The floor is now once again open. Are there any other delegates wishing to take the floor at this time? Then please raise your hand. The delegate of the Maldives has been recognized.
The delegate of Maldives is fully in support of this resolution because the delegate is going to go clause by clause. Clause 1 talks about the issue in a almost illegal matter because UNCLOS, the UN United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, is a legal convention. Then Clause 2 creates a new plan which will work with the UN and also collaborate with the Red Cross, which are both very important. And that would be very helpful. A new program has never done any harm. Clause 3 is basically giving economic and infrastructural aid, and it's also giving manpower. The delegate would like to say that some countries do not have money, as you know, they might be corrupt or something like that, or they do not have enough resources. But other countries, like those kind of countries, often do have manpower. So this can also create jobs. So this is, Clause 3 is very useful. Clause 4 is more about legal and legal things and helping refugees, and so on. And carbon neutrality is the clause that the delegate made herself, and would like to say that this clause helps us in the long term, because if we pledge to carbon neutrality, then basically we'll be ending the problem in 100 years. Also, the delegate would like to say that the delegate agrees with the delegate of Canada that something natural to abate flooding is necessary. And actually, Maldives has been doing this. The Maldives has basically regrown its coral reefs, which are a natural resource, and corals are actually help in abating flooding. So in some countries, mangroves might be the solution, like in India, while in others, in most actually, coral reefs are what we can use to regrow them and basically create natural barriers. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate. Is the delegate open to any points of information?
And all.
The chair would just like to remark that please do not raise your hands just at any point during the debate, but only when your chair asks you to. So unless I ask you to raise your placards, please do not raise them. Thanks, Delegate. Are there any points of information? Then please raise your placards now. The delegate of Costa Rica and has been recognized.
Thank you, Chair. This delegate would like to ask the delegate of, she forgot, she emphasized that Clause 3 is very effective clause in the way that it encourages governments to make work on such solutions, but doesn't the delegate believe that these solutions are actually something already exists? Isn't this kind of too conventional?
This is the point of the chair. Can the delegate please specify which countries?
This delegate believes that direct conversation between delegates is not allowed, but the delegate is making point of information to delegate of Maldives.
The chair corrects. There will be no direct dialogue between the delegates. So the main submitter, the delegate was just given his speech on the resolution, cannot ask a question back. However, they are prepared to answer the other delegate's question, if that makes sense. So does the delegate of Costa Rica feel that her question has been sufficiently answered?
Actually, she did not answer her question. She asked to which delegate her question was aimed to.
Chair, the delegate, this is to the chair. Can the delegate please repeat her point, because the delegate did not hear and did not understand.
Thank you, delegate. Since there really would not be any direct dialogue at any point between the delegates, the delegate could have just stated that. So could the delegate of Costa Rica please rephrase or restate her point?
Thank you, Chair. The delegate would like to ask the delegate of Maldives doesn't she think that the Clause 3 is kind of conventional? The delegate of Maldives has emphasized the Clause 3 is very effective one, but this is actually something that's going on in current situation. It's just because of lack of financial support.
frankly, the delegate did not really understand what the delegate was saying. The delegate has no idea which clause the delegate is referring to, so the delegate really cannot answer that question.
Thank you. Would the delegate of the Maldives like to yield the floor back to the chair?
The delegate yields the floor back to the chair.
The floor is now once again open. Are there any other delegates wishing to take the floor at this point? Then please raise your placards now. The delegate of the United States of America has been recognized.
Thank you, Honourable Chair. The delegate of the United States does not particularly like this resolution as she feels that it focuses on a very small aspect of climate change, which in this case is flooding. The delegate would like to point out that this resolution offers solutions to the effects of climate change rather than climate change itself. If delegates were to look at this resolution and its effectiveness for the long term, they may find that organizations will end up exhausting all their resources and manpower abiding by the clauses stated within this resolution, as flooding incidents will only increase if the source of the problem is not addressed. Thank you.
Thank you, delegate. Is the delegate open to any points of information?
Two pertaining to her speech.
The delegate has opened herself up to 2 points pertaining to her speech. Are there any points on the House? Then please raise your placards. The delegate of Bahrain has been recognized.
The delegate of the United States has emphasized the need for long-term goals regarding to climate change. However, does the delegate not agree that there are some immediate steps that have to be taken concerning tiny island nations that are under immediate threat from climate change?
Of course, these situations need to be addressed, but the delegate feels that there should also be some long-term clauses in the resolution, not just short-term. Obviously, perhaps the short-term clauses get priority, but perhaps delegates could consider writing an amendment for investing in eco-friendly technology and things like that to better the resolution.
Thank you, delegates. Does the delegate of the United States now yield the floor back to the chair?
Delegate yields the floor back to the chair.
Thank you. The floor is now once again open. Are there any other delegates wishing to take the floor at this time? Then please raise your hand. The delegate of Cuba has been recognized.
The delegate has submitted an amendment.
Thank you. The chair will now read the amendment, and then afterwards the delegate of Cuba can give a speech explaining the amendment. So Clause 7 urges member nations to establish a system of safety schemes and advance and immediate warnings. A. Advanced warning systems would include the setting up of radio transmitters and receivers in remote coastal areas with up-to-date information on upcoming storms and floods. B. Awareness campaigns should be launched to I. Draw attention to signs of distress with specific emphasis on the Morse code form of SOS and the appropriate sound and light patterns used to signal for approaching storms. Subclause 2. Educate those living in coastal regions on basic storm readiness steps, including items to be put in disaster kit and steps to minimize damage. Subclause 3. Importance of keeping weather radios since they send out special alarm tones even when switched off. Subclause C. Immediate warnings would include subclause I, a series of sounds, preferably SOS and Morse code. Subclause 2. A light pattern to be decided on later, similar to the ones in hurricanes. 2 red lights with a white light placed in between. Thank you, delegate. Does the delegate want to give a speech on his amendment?
Yes, the delegate would like to give a speech on the amendment. May I begin?
Yes. The delegate of Cuba, please proceed with your speech.
Sorry, my mic wasn't working. The delegate of Cuba, after having read the resolution, feels that the resolution focuses too much on organizations and governments setting up programs or collaborating with each other. Rather, the delegate of Cuba believes that the resolution should focus more on how to train the people to act in a case of emergency, due to a flood, a hurricane, a tornado, a typhoon, or anything of that sort. This kind of readiness can prevent the loss of human lives and can further help in the readiness of people when storm approaches. Thank you.
Thank you, delegate. Is the delegate open to any points of information? Is the delegate open to any points of information? The delegate of Cuba. It seems that the delegate of Cuba is having some audio problems. That is okay. The chair will now set closed debate time for this amendment at 2 minutes for and 2 minutes against this amendment. We will now move into time for this amendment. Are there any delegates wishing to take the floor and give a speech for this amendment? Delegate of Costa Rica has been recognized.
Thank you, Chair. This delegate believes that this amendment is practical compared to other causes submitted by the delegate of Singapore. This urges nations to give a kit that will help them during the emergency situation, and also concentrate on specific problems, specific solutions like teaching the Morse code form of SOS and appropriate sound and light patterns. So this delegate wholeheartedly supports this amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. Is the delegate open to any points of information?
She'll be open to 1 point of information.
The delegate has opened herself up to 1 point of information. Are there any on the floor? Then please raise your hand now. The delegate of the Maldives has been recognized.
The delegate of Maldives would like to ask, using its own specific topography, we have 300 habitated islands, which means that if we used one emitter, light or sound emitter, it would not reach all of the 300 islands. And does the delegate think it is feasible that 300 islands have to be educated using the Morse code and sounded light patterns? And wouldn't that be basically a drain on finances?
Well, this delegate supports this amendment because it gives a united form of recovery or a response to emergency situation, or if the delegate believes that this is inefficient, how is the delegate going to propose another solution that will help the crews that is coming to help to recognize the problem? If this delegate believes that this is a internationally recognized science that can help the island residents. Thank you.
Thank you, delegate. Does the delegate yield the floor back to the chair?
Back to the chair.
Time for this amendment has elapsed, and we'll now move into time against this amendment. Are there any delegates wishing to speak against this amendment at this point? Then please raise your hand. The delegate of the Dominican Republic has been recognized.
Thank you, Chair. We wish to point out that there are a number of flaws within this amendment. The idea of using the infrastructural change to convey information that is being handed out about the fact that whatever is going on is already set up in place. It does not need to be re-reminded through this resolution. As well, we don't need to be re-reminded through obsolete situations such as Morse code. I also wish to remind fellow delegates that this debate is more about the movement of people rather than actual change about what is happening with climate change. It's about the moving of people, and we need to respect their rights. The Dominican Republic is open points of information at your discretion.
Thank you, Delegate. Are there any such points in the House? Then please raise your hands now. Seeing as there are none, would the delegate like to yield the floor back to the chair?
I yield the floor back to the chair.
Thank you. Time against this amendment has now elapsed, and we'll move right into voting procedure on this amendment. The chair would just like to remind all delegates that abstaining from amendment is not possible. A stands for, and then B is against the amendment, so please take your votes now. With 12 votes for and 3 against, this amendment has passed. Please make the appropriate changes. Oh, thank you. We'll now proceed with time for open debate, and the floor is now once again open. Are there any other delegates wishing to take the floor at this point? Then please raise your placard. The delegate of Moldova has been recognized.
This delegate has submitted an amendment.
Thank you, delegate. It will just take 1 second for the amendments moderator to load the amendment up on the screen. The amendment reads as follows. At Clause 8, recommends the usage of NGOs such as CARE International or other grassroots organizations to aid in sustainable societal growth without dependence on the organization to help people in areas affected by climate change improve their quality of life. Delegate, please proceed with your speech on this amendment now.
Moldova believes that NGOs such as CARE International or other grassroots organizations can really aid in societal growth because right now the resolution as it is does not really deal with the people, but NGOs really help people. CARE International is an organization known for helping with infrastructure and poverty, but they do it in a way whereas they teach people what they need to do to improve their quality of life. May it be better farming, how to access clean water, how to make food, and how to make their food last. And Moldova feels that if more people in these areas affected by climate change are maybe more educated or have these skills for survival, they can improve their quality of life. And that will really help in aiding with climate change, because if people can improve their quality of life by, say, farming this type of crop because they know it will grow well in this area, they're helping themselves, they're helping their community, because now everyone in their community can say, let me farm this, I'll have food for a week now. And it's also helping the nation as a whole. And when a nation is helped, then that nation is going to be like, let me help the rest of the world, because I can help myself, now I can help everyone else. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate. Is the delegate open to any points of information?
Any and all points of information.
The delegate has opened yourself up to any and all points of information. Are there any on the floor at this point? Then please raise your hands. The delegate of the United States has been recognized.
Delegates of the United States feels that the reasons that the delegate of Moldova has stated are very good. And she's just wondering why the delegate did not put them in her clause, as the clause itself, without the explanation, is very vague. If the delegate included all the reasons she stated just now in her speech, the delegate of the United States would definitely vote for the amendment. However, since she hasn't, the clause appears very vague. So the delegate was just wondering why she didn't put these amazing reasons in her clause.
Well, the delegate of Moldova felt the clause might have then became too specific. But if that is the case, if this fails, I can submit this same amendment with more reasoning behind it, or it can be re-amended by another delegate. Thank you.
Thank you. Does the delegate yield the floor back to the chair?
Yes, I yield the floor back to the chair.
The chair now sets debate time for this amendment at 2 minutes, 4 minutes of closed debate, 2 minutes for and 2 against this amendment. We'll now move into time for this amendment. Are there any delegates wishing to speak for this amendment at this point? Then please raise your hand. The delegate of Singapore is recognized.
Honorable chairs and esteemed delegates, the amendment proposed by the delegate of Moldova is an essential one to the topic at hand. While it is important to focus directly on the rights of refugees as per the topic, it is also important to focus on the impacts that their lives, that climate change will have on their life. And one of the main impacts it will have is that they will be forced to relocate to inland parts of the country, or to immigrate as refugees to another country if the area where they live is threatened by climate change. And NGOs such as CARE International, or even NGOs that give low interest loans such as Kiva, can help promote entrepreneurialism, which is a key factor to economic growth, and can with low capital can help to increase the quality of life of people affected in coastal areas by climate change. The delegate of Singapore believes that the amendment proposed by the delegate of Moldova is an essential one to today's resolution, and urges all delegates to vote for it in order to solve this pressing issue. Thank you.
Thank you, delegate. Is the delegate open to any points of information?
Any and all.
Are there any such points on the House? And please raise your hands now. The delegate of Canada has been recognized.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. A delegate of Canada fails to recognize how climate change is leading to an increase in the number of refugees, especially in coastal areas. It is understood that the coastal areas are being endangered of flooding, but that does not cause refugees, it causes massive displacement. Refugees are defined as people having no political rights, no social rights, no economical rights in a particular nation, which is an outcome of civil or international war. Delegates, one thing you must know, they are displaced persons and not refugees as such. Second of all, the delegate who spoke before me, handling refugees is an international matter. They can be granted asylum, they can be granted refugee camps to live in temporarily until the situations in their own countries get better. Third of all, I would like to suggest to the House that, and to the delegate who spoke before me, that please, if you are sending in amendments like the one the delegate spoke before me, please send it with regards to the environment as such and how the Council can work towards the reduction of environmental impacts on the coastal areas. As with the refugees, they are absolutely unrelated, and hence would like to suggest,
Delegate, please come to your closing remarks.
Ask the delegate who spoke before me to suggest a more viable and a more topic-related suggestion or solution. Thank you.
Thank you, delegate. Is the delegate open to any points of information?
Any and all.
Are there any such in the House? Then please raise your hand now. Seeing as there are none, we'll now move into time against this amendment. Are there any delegates wishing to speak against this amendment? Then please raise your hand. The delegate of the Dominican Republic has been recognized.
Thank you, Chair. This resolution has already been criticised by the Dominican Republic for involving too many NGOs, considering the United Nations is more than capable of doing the work that has been set aside. What this resolution does is continue to use these NGOs when, A, they are not necessarily the best people to do the job, and B, the work is already done by bodies such as the ones that have been set out by the United Nations. Why do we need to double up on a program when we clearly already have one singular program that is already in place? I am open to points of information at your discretion.
Thank you, Delegate. Is the delegate open to any points of information?
Any and all.
Are there any points of information on the House? Then please use your hands now. The delegate of the United States has been recognized.
Why exactly does the delegate assume that NGOs aren't capable of, aren't best suited for matters such as these? Are they not there for helping people depending on what they stand for and issues like this?
We do understand that NGOs are an integral part of the community, but what we don't believe in is the doubling up of resources that has currently been seen through this resolution. We've clearly stated that the Red Cross is does not have to help out, and this resolution effectively forces them to do it. And through the example that's being used on the new Clause A through CARE International, we feel the United Nations is more than capable of doing the work that is set out. When we're not saying NGOs can't go out and help, but the UN is clearly capable of doing the work set out.
Thank you. So, delegate of the Dominican Republic now yields the floor back to the chair.
I yield the floor back to the chair.
Thank you. Time against this amendment has now elapsed, and we'll move straight into voting procedures for this amendment. Please select either yes or no, depending on if you want to vote for or against this amendment, and make your votes now. Chair would like to ask all delegates to vote again since, okay. With a vote of 9 votes for and 8 votes against this amendment, the amendment has passed. There are 45 minutes of open debate time left, and the floor is now once again open. Are there any other delegates wishing to take the floor at this time? Then please raise your placards. The delegate of Brazil is recognized.
The delegate has issued an amendment.
The amendments moderator will try to get the amendment on the Titan bat right now. The amendment by the delegate of Brazil reads as follows. Add clause 9. Nations are required to build a border, such as leagues used in New Orleans, which will abide by safety regulations and be considered a safe structure for the protection of a nation's coast. The structure must be built for the worst-case situations and will be judged as so. Thank you. Would the delegate of Brazil like to give a speech on this amendment?
The delegate would and will begin. This is a simple amendment, but this is an amendment for all nations. If nations do not have protective structures, they are way behind and must modernize quickly. In the instance of Hurricane Katrina, there was a failure in inputting a sense of urgency into the levees that were placed there. Delegates may say that the levees didn't work, but if there weren't levees there, then there would be no New Orleans to talk about in this present time. Through this resolution, I realize there are a few tangible amendments that call for action. I believe this calls for action and will promote safety throughout the world. If a country doesn't have a protective structure, leaders must rush to put in effective barriers up. If not for their sake, then for the sake of their people and their pockets. In 2010, natural disasters destroyed property over worth $109 billion. In 2011, costs were a record $378 billion. Spend your money now and preserve your future.
Thank you, Delegate. Is the delegate open to any points of information?
None.
That is in order. The chair now sets debate time for this amendment at 4 minutes of closed debate. We'll now move into time for this amendment. Are there any delegates wishing to speak for this amendment? Then please raise your hand. The delegate of Denmark is recognized.
The delegate of France submitted an amendment before he left. Could this delegate introduce that?
The chair would just like to make a correction. If the delegate is unsure of a previous amendment, then that is not in order right now. The only reason to ask a point of information is to ask the main submitter of this, to who just gave a speech, to explain the question that some delegates might have. So if there are any points of information on the House, then please raise your placards now, but other questions are completely out of order. The delegate crew has been recognized.
May the delegate explains how building such a border would help?
Could you repeat that?
Delegate, please rephrase her question.
May the delegate explains more how building such a border would help?
Safety regulations would be inputted to slow down or stop water. For instance, if there were no levees, water could walk into the land and wipe the whole city out, wipe whole cities out. There must be something to protect our cities so that we don't be destroyed completely.
Thank you, delegate. Does the delegate now yield the floor back to the chair?
The delegate yields the floor back to the chair.
Time for this amendment has elapsed. We'll now move into time against this amendment. Are there any delegates wishing to speak against this amendment at this point? Then please raise your hand. The delegate of Bahrain has been recognized.
This delegate is strongly against the amendment because it believes that such a unilateral approach is not feasible for a complex problem. Levy should not be the only method of avoiding inundations. As the delegate of Canada and Maldives have previously mentioned, there are other alternatives such as building coral reefs or mangroves. And nations should have the freedom to explore these alternatives instead of just considering levees as the only option.
Thank you. Is the delegate open to any points of information?
Any and all?
Is the delegate of thank you, delegate. Are there any points of information on the House? Then please raise your placards. The delegate of the Maldives and Cuba have been recognized.
Doesn't the delegate agree that levees have, most countries and their residents have already built levees because they're basically paranoid that the flood is going to destroy their homes or their fields? So basically, we're requiring nations to do something that they've already done, and we need more innovative and creative solutions. Does the delegate agree?
The delegate feels that building levees is the most substantial method for preventing floods, but yes, the delegate does agree that there's room for innovation and finding new methods for avoiding these floods.
Does the delegate believe that building levees is right at the cost of the death of many salmon fish, because it has been noted that levees often destroy the habitats of salmon?
This delegate was not aware of this fact, but considering this, this delegate feels that this is more of a reason to avoid such a one-sided approach to solving the problem. A natural alternative such as coral reefs can also be explored, which doesn't pose such an ecological threat.
Thank you, Delegate. We'll now move right into voting procedure on this amendment as a whole. As usual, please make your votes right now on this amendment. With a vote of 5 for and 11 against this amendment has not passed. We'll now resume with debate on this issue as a whole. The floor is now open once again. Are there any delegates wishing to speak at this point? Then please raise your placards. The delegate of Bahrain has been recognized.
This delegate has submitted an amendment. I'm not sure if that was clear, but this delegate has submitted an amendment.
The chair apologizes. However, it takes some time to post the amendment to the resolution. And I don't think that's all of it yet. So, okay, great. The delegate, the amendment reads as follows. Amend clause 4 by adding subclause B. So that, okay, clause 4, subclause B. Ensure the gradual resettlement of affected areas through redevelopment initiatives. Would the delegate like to give a speech on his amendment?
Yes. The delegate feels that clause 4 has previously been too vague on addressing the redevelopment of the affected regions. Although, yes, there is a need to protect refugees, offer them security, long-term employment. There's also a greater need to sustain their previous country. And this can be done through redevelopment initiatives, through which their home country can be redeveloped. A case in point, in 2009, when Cyclone Isla hit Bangladesh and its neighboring areas, in the subsequent years, the area was not properly developed, and as a result, this area still lacks basic infrastructure. Whereas a city such as New Orleans, which was hit by Hurricane Katrina, has redeveloped substantially and now offers feasible condition of living. So this delegate feels that the most important step after, considering long-term step, most important step after national disaster is redeveloping this area and making it sustainable for people to live in. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate. Is the delegate open to any questions? points of information?
Any and all?
Are there any points of information on the House? Then please raise your hands now. The delegate of the United States and Cuba have been recognized in that order.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. How exactly does the delegate envisage NGOs ensuring the gradual resettlement of affected areas through redevelopment initiatives? Could the delegate further explain that amendment, particularly the phrase redevelopment initiatives?
This delegate feels that such redevelopment initiatives should not only be limited to NGOs, since they have limited finances. Instead, this redevelopment should be supported by the national and international governments. Redevelopment constitutes of building basic infrastructure, such as roads, restoring buildings that have been affected, restoring the coastline, and just making the land livable as such.
The delegate of the United States of America asked the question which was on my mind, so I'd like to revoke my question.
Thank you. Does the delegate of Bahrain wish to give the floor back to the chair?
Yes, this delegate yields the floor back to the chair.
So we'll now move into time for this amendment, which will be set at 2 minutes. Are there any delegates wishing to speak for this amendment? And please raise your placards now. Seeing as there are none, we'll now move into time against this amendment. Are there any delegates wishing to speak against this amendment? Then please raise your hand. Again, are there any delegates wishing to speak against this amendment at this point? Then please raise your hand now. Okay, we'll now move into voting procedures on this amendment. So please make your votes right now. With a vote of 12 votes for and 4 against, this amendment has passed. The appropriate changes will be made to the resolution. And the floor is now once again open. Are there any other delegates wishing to take the floor at this time? Then please raise your placards now. The delegate of Canada has been recognized.
All right, thank you, Honorable Chair. Referring to clause number 4, it says called upon nations to grant refugees displaced by natural disasters. As the delegate of Canada mentioned before, refugees are of a political or armed conflict. They are people displaced due to political, civil war or international war. People who are displaced from natural disasters are called displaced individuals since they retain the citizenship, since they retain the fundamental rights, irrespective of the fact that their belongings, their property has been destroyed. Clause number 4 makes absolutely no sense. First, number 1, because you are asking nations to grant refugees to people, to citizens that are already well and healthy of a country in itself, especially in the coastal area. It's like asking Sri Lanka to grant refugees the right to live in Sri Lanka when they're happily being rehabilitated and replaced in India. Clause number 4 does not make any sense, absolutely. Hence, I'd like to suggest that clause number 4 be deleted. Secondly, clause number 5 requests nations housing refugees from coastal areas. Since clause number 4 is absolutely absurd, obsolete, and does not hold true, clause number 5 shall also be deleted on the basis of obsolescence and on the basis of irrelevance, as we are trying to fight global warming, global climate change, and not fighting for the rights of the refugees. That does not lie in our mandate. It lies with the mandates of the UNHCR, that is United Nations High Commission on Refugees. Hence, we'd like to suggest an amendment to remove clauses number 4 and 5 as they're obsolete and they're irrelevant. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate. Is the delegate open to any points of information?
Any and all.
Are there any points of information in the House? Then please raise your placards now. The delegate of O-MUN-August has been recognized.
The delegate of Canada said that clause number 4 is absurd and is obsolete because refugees is not the right term to use. Is the delegate aware of the term climate refugees, which is what people that are displaced by natural disasters such as flooding are called? These people are called climate refugees, and therefore Maldives in 7 years would be a climate refugee if we do not start implementing clause 5, which is also useful therefore, because carbon neutrality is the only way we can stop this constant problem. Is the delegate aware of that?
Thank you, Delegate of Maldives. The Delegate of Canada is well and aware of all the international conventions, terms, and clauses and treaties regarding refugees and human rights. Now, this clause holds true only if we delegates assume that a flood will carry civilians, for hypothetical example, all the way from Chennai, all the way from Tamil Nadu into Sri Lanka, which is highly impossible because if there was a flood of this magnitude, number one, the civilians will be killed. Second of all, water coming into land, that is called a flood. You can't displace people into various geographical areas and across borders in floods. Floods are always checked with pre-built dams, and that is the reason why dams are built. Secondly, with reference to these terms, I am emphasizing again, refugees is a term used to describe people who have lost their fundamental rights, their citizenship, and their basic right to life in the country because of an internal or external conflict or aggression, or an act of aggression from their own government, like what's happening in Syria, where they're becoming refugees because their government, where refugees, their fundamental rights do not exist anymore. That is a refugee. This is a displaced person. Thank you.
Can the delegate ask a follow-up question?
That is not in order. The chair apologizes. Does the delegate of Canada now yield the floor back to the chair?
Yes, the delegate of Canada yields the floor back to the chair. Thank you.
Thank you. The floor is now once again open. Are there any other delegates wishing to take the floor at this time? Then please raise your placards. The delegate of Denmark has been recognized.
Once again, the delegate of France submitted an amendment before he left. Could this delegate introduce that?
That is in order. We're now just waiting for the amendments moderator to post it on the board. The amendment reads as follows. Add clause 9. Calls upon capable LEDCs to contribute to the efforts asserted by clauses 3 and 5 and suggests a framework to do so through the creation of the Commission, named the UN Capability Assessment Commission, UNCAC, which will A. Assess the capability of each LEDC to supply aid and contribute efforts, and categorize capable countries as advanced LEDCs. B. Estimate by how much each advanced LEDC is able to provide such endeavors without distressing its economy. C. Work under the Economic and Social Council and send in annual reports which will coincide with each country's annual budget. Amendment. Thank you, Delegate. Will the delegate now proceed with his opening speech? With his speech on the amendment?
Delegates, we must not allow the austerity that is trying to be placed on poor on poor people and the working class in Europe to be placed on poor countries internationally. We must have a system where countries that can provide aid, that can provide the money, do so and do so accordingly. That is, and for these reasons, I would urge all delegates to vote for this amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate. Is the delegate open to any points of information?
Pertaining to this resolution, or to this amendment.
Are there any such on the floor? Then please raise your placards now. Seeing as there are none, would the delegate of Denmark now like to yield the floor back to the chair?
Denmark would yield the floor back to the chair.
Thank you. The chair now sets debate time for this amendment at 4 minutes of closed debate. We will now move into time for this amendment. Are there any delegates wishing to speak for this amendment at this point? Then please raise your hand. The delegate of China has been recognized.
The delegate of China fully supports this amendment because they feel that this amendment goes a long ways in resolving climate change. It takes and it doesn't put the full bill of climate change on the more economically developed countries, and instead it balances it out amongst all countries. LEDCs, even though they may be less economically developed than other nations, they still have something that they can contribute to the effort. And this amendment would launch the UNCAC, which is the Capability Assessment Commission, to assess just how much that nation could put forth to help this amendment. Therefore, this delegate feels that it would work in resolving climate change and creating more funds contributed by less economically developed countries.
Thank you, Delegate. Just a quick reminder, the chair would like to remind all delegates to refrain from using first-person pronouns. Moving on, is the delegate of China open to any points of information?
Any and all.
Are there any points of information on the floor? Then please raise your placard now. Seeing as there are none, would the delegate of China like to yield the floor back to the chair?
The delegate of China yields the floor to the chair.
Time for this amendment has elapsed, and we will now be moving into time against this amendment. Are there any delegates wishing to speak against this amendment? Then please raise your hand now. Seeing as there are none, we will now move into voting procedures on this amendment. So please, delegates, make your votes now. With a vote of 14 for and 0 against this amendment has passed, and the appropriate changes will be made. The floor is now open once again. Are there any delegates wishing to take the floor at this point? Then please raise your hand. Delegate of the Dominican Republic has been recognized.
The honourable delegate wishes to submit an amendment.
The amendment reads as follows. At Clause 10, calls upon the establishment of UNMPCC, United Nations Movement of People due to Climate Change, which will be responsible for the following tasks. A, to confirm who will need to move out of their country of origin due to climate change. To decide where these people will move to, considering the following criteria. Subclause I, religious values. Subclause 2, ability for nations to take further people without major infrastructural strain. And subclause 3, ability for nations to take further people under the requirements of taking in refugees through. Okay. Would the main submitter like to give a speech on his amendment?
We do not feel that at this current point in time, the resolution clearly sets out what we believe is the appropriate resources for human management in the transferring between one country and another. Now, we do respect the fact that some countries have already set in places some stones, but we do not believe, the Dominican Republic does not believe, that some of the cultural values will be recognized when people are being forced to move. This issue is going to grow greater and greater the more that climate change is going to happen, the more that climate change is going to be affected. We don't assume that all robots are one person. This amendment is going to be responsible for looking at the needs of people throughout the world. We know now the restrictions that we put in place are clearly set out so that we can get a clear cut, and so we can clearly cut where people are eligible to go towards.
Thank you, Delegate. Is the delegate open to any points of information?
Delegate is open to any and all.
Are there any such points on the House? Then please raise your hands now. The delegate of the United States, Cuba, and Moldova have been recognized in that order.
Thank you, Honourable Chair. Would it not be a better use of our resources to seek out organisations that already conduct similar acts and offer them our support on the conditions that they follow the guidelines stated in your amendment, instead of squandering time and effort on creating a brand new organisation?
The Dominican Republic has already spoken about the issues that are faced with NGOs, and it is to the honourable delegate's knowledge that there is no one NGO that is sufficiently detailed in the analysis through the changing of peoples, and we feel that this is the role of the United Nations to do, and this is why we feel that the United Nations is best equipped to set up such body.
The delegate of Cuba.
Does the delegate believe that religious values is a proper basis on which to decide where to move people?
If you're a Jewish person, would you allow yourself to be parted to move to Saudi Arabia? I think the honourable delegate believes that religious values is a significant right, and it is something that is set out in the Charter of the Human Rights Charter about the issue of religious rights, and we need to respect religious rights in such cases.
Request to follow up.
That is granted.
Would the delegate not feel that it is up to the person, the displaced person, who would decide whether or not he would like religious values to be a criteria?
Can the honourable delegate repeat his question?
Delegate, please repeat his question.
The delegate of the Dominican Republic believes that it is up to the displaced person to decide whether or not religious values should be a criterion.
Religious values are very much a criteria that has been set out throughout the United Nations through various documents, as the one that I previously mentioned, the Human Rights Charter. And it is something that is embroidered that people have their right to choose what religious values they are going towards. And this needs to be maintained throughout, and we believe that this amendment does so.
The delegate of Moldova.
Thank you, Chair. Hello. This is a very good clause, but the delegation of Moldova has one question. Since the establishment of the UN-MPCC may take a long time, would the delegate of Canada consider using an NGO such as Refugees International, which may work to complete some of these tasks, but in a different way and in more of a time-sensitive matter? Thank you.
The Honourable Delegate for the Dominican Republic believes that the United Nations is well equipped to set up a body that will be able to handle the demands now. We believe at the moment that the issue at the moment is a very small matter, but will grow exponentially into larger matters. And the Honourable Delegate believes that it's the United Nations' duty to pursue such changes, and this is why we believe the United Nations is the best body to deal with such an issue.
Thank you. So the delegate now yield the floor back to the chair.
I yield the floor back to the chair.
Time for this amendment has now elapsed, and we'll move right into time against this amendment. Are there any delegates wishing to speak against this amendment at this point? Then please raise your placards. The delegate of the Maldives has been recognized.
The delegate believes that this clause is this amendment, is basically unhelpful because, first of all, creating UN-MPCC would be basically replacing the United Nations Panel on Climate Change. The Panel on Climate Change is doing what the delegate has called upon UN-MPCC to do, and creating a new organization would basically be a strain on the already stretched resources. All delegates must know that UN's resources are not endless, they have an end, and right now they are being stretched. Also, the delegate would like to say for Clause 10, Subclause B, religious values are not as important as cultural values, because culture might also, apart from including religion, it also includes other things, shared culture is very important. And for the Maldives, which is probably going underwater in 7 years, we are basically looking into new land, and we're not looking at religion. The Maldives is a Muslim state, but we're looking to buy land in India, which is predominantly Hindu, because we share cultural values. So the delegate does not agree that religious values are the most important. Thank you.
Thank you, delegate. Is the delegate open to any points of information?
Any and all.
Are there any such points on the floor? Then please raise your placards now. The delegate of Canada has been recognized. Please ask your point of information.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Now, if the delegate of Canada heard right, Maldives is buying land in India. Delegate, that is completely impossible, because no country would like to give up a piece of land, irrespective of the fact that your country may be submerged 7 years from now.
Delegate, please refrain from using the first person pronoun and phrase your point of information in the format of a question.
How does a delegate think that buying land will be more efficient, productive, and more capable of supporting its population rather than saving the land which is already bestowed on the country of Maldives? It is logistically, financially, politically, socially, and economically impossible to buy land in another country, especially for a country in itself. And I'd like to ask the delegate of Maldives, how is it more possible than investing in saving in measures such as ecological mangrove growing? Thank you.
The delegate of Maldives is, first of all, loves to thank the delegate of Canada for his excellent point, because now the delegate of Maldives can talk about what she wanted to talk about. These talks are under the table. They're not official. However, our president has announced them, and they are going on. And although the delegate might think it impossible, they are possible and they are happening. These talks are not official, as I said. And about what the delegate said, that this is better than doing stuff, improving your own country. Well, the Maldives is trying to improve the country. Right now, the Maldives is improving infrastructure by building walls, which cost about $1 billion each, but the Maldives cannot afford. It's taken the carbon pledge in 2009. It's built high artificial islands. It's regrowing the coral reefs, even though it has no university to do research. And it is also trying to do some filling, which has some disastrous effects. So we are trying, but for a country with such debt, the Maldives has debt of around $476 billion to many countries, including India. we need to basically look for other options. And right now, because we aren't getting innovative solutions, this is what we're doing. We're looking for new land to buy. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate. Time against this amendment has now elapsed, and we'll move straight into voting procedures. So, delegates, please make your votes. With a vote of 6 to 9, this amendment has failed. We'll now continue with open debate, and the floor is now once open again. Are there any delegates wishing to take the floor at this point? Then please raise your placards. The delegate of Peru has been recognized.
Honorable Chair, distinguished delegates, the Republic of Peru is totally convinced with the importance of fixing what the climate change have done in the past. But, ladies and gentlemen, a bad weather is not a bad luck, because everything happens for a reason. The climate change in the last few years were a result of pollution. The Republic of Peru believes that in order to solve an issue, we should stop its main causes. Therefore, we invite the international community to think about environmental solutions and look for long-term solutions. Look for clever solutions that will let us pay less money and pay more time and get more fruitful results. For example, Peru got a creative idea, which is supporting industries that can help us. For example, soy protein products use 5 times less land and 10 times less water and generate less CO2 emissions than products made from animal protein. This environmental pollution will be stopped if we support such industries. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate. Is the delegate open to any points of information?
Yes.
The delegate has opened herself up to points of information. Are there any on the floor? Then please raise your hands now. Seeing as there are none, would the delegate of Peru like to yield the floor back to the chair?
Delegate yields the floor back to the chair.
Thank you, Delegate. The floor is now once again open. Are there any other delegates wishing to speak at this time? Then please raise your hand. Recognized.
I'm sorry, but did you say the delegate of China? It cut off part of the first part of what you said.
Yes, the delegate of China has been recognized.
This delegate would just like to state that they wholeheartedly support this resolution as a whole, and they would like to encourage everyone else to please do the same. They feel that this resolution goes long ways in ensuring the rights of people in coastal regions that are affected by climate change. It goes from everything to planning after something should happen to on how to prevent the issue as a whole. So therefore, the delegate supports the amendment, and they believe that it will make a true change and will ensure the rights of people in coastal regions that are affected by climate change, our whole goal of today's session.
Thank you, Delegate. Is the delegate open to any points of information?
Any and all.
Are there any such on the floor? Then please raise your hands now. The delegate of the Maldives has been recognized.
Does the delegate of China agree that, as the delegate of Maldives has said before, this resolution is tackling the issue from most aspects in terms of legal, aspects, infrastructural aspects, economic aspects, and then the recent amendments which we have passed are basically helping us a lot in making this resolution a whole lot stronger. And if this resolution were to be implemented, it would be very useful. Does the delegate agree?
Yes, this delegate agrees entirely with everything that was just mentioned. This delegate feels that the amendments that have been made today go a long ways in supporting the resolution as a whole. The debate started with a good resolution, and now we are ending with a better resolution. This delegate feels that it reaches economic aspects, infrastructural aspects, and all other aspects necessary to ensure the rights of people in coastal regions, and that this resolution will truly make a difference and be implemented wellly. Structural aspects.
Thank you, Delegate. We now have time for one last speaker. Are there any delegates in the House wishing to take the floor at this time? Then raise your placards. The delegate of Singapore has been recognized.
Honorable chairs and esteemed delegates, the delegate of Singapore would first like to begin by expressing his appreciation for all of the amendments that have been submitted and that have greatly strengthened this resolution. Before concluding today's debate, this delegate would like to briefly touch upon two of the clauses that were a bit contentious, which were clauses 4 and 5. Clause 4 was the delegate of Canada was opposed to clause 4 because of the definition of refugee. And while refugees actually are defined as any person fleeing due to persecution or natural disasters, so the delegate believes that the definition of refugee is not a key factor in this clause. And regarding clause 5, this delegate believes that the carbon neutrality plan will be very difficult to ensure that all member states abide by this. However, this delegate believes that with the shorter-term goals outlined in clause 4A, that this plan will be feasible. The delegate of Singapore urges all other delegates to vote in favor of this resolution in order to combat this issue for the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate. Is the delegate open to any points of information?
Any and all.
Are there any points of information on the House? Then please raise your hands now. Seeing as there are none, would the delegate of Singapore like to yield the floor back to the chair?
So yielded.
Time for this resolution has elapsed, and we'll now move into voting procedures on this resolution as a whole. So please make your votes now and select A to vote for the resolution, B against, and C is abstaining. With a vote of 14-4 and 2 votes against this resolution has passed. Clapping is in order.
Hello, delegates. Okay, so this brings us officially to the end of our debate. Before you all go, I have some announcements. First of all, I want to give a special thank you to this month's moderating team. You guys did a fantastic job. And for all the delegates here, great job. It was a very active debate, and it was a lot of fun to watch. So great job, guys. Okay, so a few announcements. Our next debate, of course, will be in September. So basically, the registration is going to open August 30th, and then more information about the debate itself, what dates and whatnot, will be offered on the O-MUN-Delegates page really soon, and also on our other websites. So we'll be posting about that very soon. Saf and I will be the assistant directors for that, and our chair is coming all the way from China, Stephen Tan. He'll be our chair. And then a few other things. We have a fun party planned for you guys to kind of kick off the O-MUN year on September 1st. One of our executive officers, Farhan, and I will be hosting that. So you guys are more than welcome to jump by and drop by that. We're going to be posting about that really soon on O-MUN-August, so keep an eye out for that pretty soon. All these pictures that you guys just sent to Lisa, feel free to still send more pictures, either to Lisa or to me on Facebook, because any pictures that have to do with O-MUN, I'm going to include that in some fun things in the party. So if you have pictures that are of you sitting at your desk, or pictures of you, just anything related to O-MUN, get really creative. There are some pictures we already have on the site. You guys are more than welcome to send that to me, and I'll use some of our old ones too. And then also, okay, let me type in this web page. We have, as Lisa was saying, we have an official page on Facebook for O-MUN. So if you guys haven't already, drop by that and give us a like. We are almost up to 800 likes. So our goal is to have 800 by sundown. So help us reach that. And then I have a couple of other links for you guys. We have a new website that our executive officer, Ramiz, is working to build. So check this out. We are going to be transitioning fully onto that eventually. So it's going to have a lot more information, so you guys be sure to check that out, especially if you're new. That'll help a lot. Anyways, okay, the next thing we're going to do is a debrief session. So you guys are more than welcome to stick around for that. We want to hear your ideas. We really want you to infuse your ideas into O-MUN. So feel free to jump on the microphone once we start that. If you guys don't want to hang around for that, you're welcome to go. Again, great job today, and we'll have more information out soon. Bye, everyone.